Would you put everything you cherish on the line to uphold your beliefs? Barron Trump just did, and the consequences were extraordinary. It was a sharp, sunny Saturday morning in Arlington, Texas. The local soccer field was alive with activity. Players were stretching, parents mingled along the sidelines, and coaches shouted instructions. Among the crowd was Barron Trump, standing out at 6 feet 7 inches despite being only 17 years old. Known for his reserved nature, Barron usually preferred to express himself through his gameplay rather than words. However, today he caught everyone's eye for a different reason. A vivid red MAGA hat sat atop his head as he entered the field. To Barron, the hat was merely a personal expression, a trivial matter in the privacy of his home. But as soon as he set foot on the field, the mood shifted. Teammates whispered among themselves, parents murmured from the stands, and Coach Dan Callahan, known for his quick temper and firm stance on keeping politics out of sports, took immediate notice. With a determined stride, Coach Callahan approached, his voice piercing the background noise. "Barron," he shouted, beckoning him closer. The team stopped and watched, sensing the brewing conflict. Barron approached, and the coach, arms crossed, his expression a blend of irritation and disbelief, confronted him. "What's this about the hat?" he demanded, his tone sharp. "It's just a hat, Coach," Barron responded, shrugging. The coach's eyes narrowed. "You know the rules. No politics here. No exceptions." Barron maintained his composure, his voice steady yet assertive. "I'm not making a statement, Coach. It's part of who I am." Coach Callahan's patience snapped. "Take it off, or leave the team," he commanded. Silence fell across the field as all eyes fixed on Barron. He paused, his hand momentarily touching the brim of his hat. Then, surprising everyone, he stood firm. "If that's the situation, Coach, I'll have to leave." With those words, Barron turned and walked off, his teammates and spectators in shock. The coach, momentarily lost for words, watched him go, then muttered under his breath before resuming the practice. But the incident was far from over. Barron wasn't one to give up so quickly. His emotions mixed as he walked away. Anger, embarrassment, a whirlwind of feelings. He climbed into his car, hands clenched on the steering wheel, replaying the confrontation. The parking lot felt strangely quiet compared to the bustling field he'd left behind. At home, life seemed to move on, but not for Barron. The conversation surfaced quickly, as expected. Melania, ever the protective mother, noticed his unusual silence the moment he stepped through the door. "What happened out there?" she asked softly, concern evident in her voice. Barron paused, then recounted everything, the confrontation with Coach Callahan, the ultimatum, and his decision to walk away. Melania's expression darkened, her frown deepening with each word, while Donald listened in stony silence, his face hardening. "That's unacceptable," Donald said firmly. "No one has the right to silence you like that." Barron held up his hand. "I don't want this to turn into a spectacle," he said quietly. "I just wanted to play soccer." Still, word traveled fast. Within hours, parents on the team buzzed in group chats, and the high school community found itself split down the middle. Some thought Barron was being obstinate, others admired his courage. On social media, things escalated when a photo of Barron walking off the field, hat firmly on his head, went viral. Reactions were swift and divided. Coach Callahan received both praise for upholding the no politics rule and criticism for allegedly targeting Barron. The comment sections exploded into debates. "This kid needs to learn the world doesn't revolve around him," countered by, "Good for him for standing up for his beliefs. Freedom of speech matters." Barron, however, avoided the noise. He wasn't scrolling through the comments or engaging in the drama. His focus was on one thing: figuring out what to do next. Days passed, and the void left by his absence on the team became evident. Barron, despite his reserved nature, had been a vital player, not just for his talent but for the calming presence he brought to an otherwise high-strung group. Practices felt strained without him. Teammates whispered about the incident, some feeling pangs of guilt for staying silent, others nervous they might be the next to face Callahan's discipline. Coach Callahan, unyielding, dismissed any concerns. "Rules are rules," he told a questioning parent after practice one evening. "If I let one person break them, where does it end?" Yet, cracks were beginning to show beneath his confident facade. For Barron, the days after the incident were harder than he had anticipated. Soccer had been more than a game. It was his escape, his sanctuary. Without it, afternoons felt hollow, the rhythm of his life disrupted. At school, the atmosphere was charged. Some classmates avoided him, unsure where they stood. Others offered quiet words of support. But a vocal few, emboldened by anonymity, mocked him openly. Crybaby Barron read one post, accompanied by a poorly edited image of him in his MAGA hat, clutching a fake trophy labeled Most Political Player. Barron tried to brush it off, but it stung. He wasn't used to this kind of attention and certainly didn't want it. It felt like every move he made was under scrutiny, twisted into something it wasn't. One evening, he sat in his room, staring at the red hat resting on his desk. It was just a simple piece of fabric, yet it now carried a weight he hadn't foreseen. His dad's words echoed in his mind, "No one gets to silence you." But so did Coach Callahan's rules he couldn't help but wonder if he'd violated. A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Melania stepped in, her voice calm and gentle. "Barron," she began, "you don't have to bear this alone. People will always have opinions, but you need to decide what's right for you." Her words lingered long after she left. Barron thought about everything: his teammates, the sport he loved, and the message he wanted to send. Slowly, an idea began to take shape in his mind, growing clearer with each passing day. But acting on it would require more than just a plan. It would demand resolve and courage. That resolve crystallized during a sleepless night. Barron knew that standing up for his beliefs would take more than words. It was time for action. When Barron couldn't shake the feeling that walking away wasn't enough, he grabbed a notebook the next morning and began scribbling down his thoughts. He wrote about what the coach's rule represented, what soccer meant to him, and how he could respond without fueling more division. Hours slipped by as he delved into research, reading about athletes who had faced backlash for standing up for their beliefs. Stories of Jackie Robinson, Colin Kaepernick, and high school players challenging injustices in their communities filled his mind with inspiration. But Barron didn't want to just follow in their footsteps. He wanted to do something unique, something that would not only grab attention but also foster understanding and unity. After school one day, he sought out Taylor, an old friend and teammate who had always had his back. "I need your help," Barron said, holding up his notebook brimming with sketches and plans. "I'm organizing a charity game." Taylor raised an eyebrow. "A charity game? Against who?" "Anyone who'll play," Barron replied with a grin. "It's not about winning. It's about showing that sports can unite people, not divide them." Taylor nodded, slowly warming to the idea. "And the coach? You think he'll be okay with it?" "I'm not asking him," Barron said firmly. "This isn't about him. It's bigger than that." The following week was a whirlwind. Barron and Taylor approached local businesses for sponsorships, created flyers, and plastered announcements across social media. The idea caught on like wildfire. Teammates who had remained quiet during the initial incident began stepping forward, offering to help. Even parents who had initially sided with the coach softened when they saw Barron's unwavering determination. The event gained momentum, and local news outlets picked up the story. Teen kicked-off soccer team organizes unity game. One headline read. Barron felt a mix of pride and nerves as the day drew closer. What if no one showed up? What if it all fell apart? But the momentum was unstoppable. The day of the game was bound to be pivotal. The morning of the charity game arrived, bringing a nervous energy that lingered in the air. The field, once the scene of a heated confrontation, now buzzed with anticipation. A small crowd had already gathered, including students, parents, and unfamiliar faces from the community. Local businesses had pitched in, donating snacks and drinks, while a large banner stretched across the bleachers with the words Unity through sports boldly displayed. Barron arrived early, juggling boxes of jerseys borrowed from a local league. As he stepped out of his car, Taylor came running toward him, breathless. "You're not going to believe this," Taylor said. "The coach is here." Barron froze. Sure enough, Coach Callahan stood at the edge of the field, arms crossed, silently watching the preparations. For a fleeting moment, Barron's confidence wavered. Was this going to turn into another confrontation? Taking a deep breath, he pushed the thought aside and focused on the task at hand, making the game a success. As players warmed up, Barron couldn't help but notice how diverse the group was. Teammates who had previously stayed silent were now laughing and bonding with players from other schools and local pickup leagues. Younger kids played on the sidelines as their parents looked on with warm smiles. The field radiated the sense of unity Barron had envisioned. When the game began, the energy was electric. Players gave it their all, but the atmosphere was light-hearted. Every goal was met with cheers from the crowd, and even small missteps drew laughter rather than criticism. Barron played with renewed passion, not to prove anything to the coach or the spectators, but to himself. For the first time in weeks, he felt the pure joy of soccer again. At half-time, Barron stepped into the middle of the field, microphone in hand, and addressed the crowd. Speaking from the heart, he said, "Sports should bring people together, not tear them apart. We all come from different backgrounds, with different beliefs. But out here, we're just players. That's what matters." The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers echoing across the field. Even Coach Callahan, who had been watching quietly from the sidelines, gave a small nod of approval. For Barron, this wasn't just a victory. It was proof that standing up for unity was worth every risk. But the real surprise came after the game, as the crowd began to scatter. Coach Callahan approached Barron, his expression softer than before. "I've been coaching for 20 years, he started, his gruff voice carrying a hint of respect. "I've seen plenty of players come and go, but what you did today, that's something I haven't seen before." Barron didn't know how to respond. He simply nodded, feeling his earlier frustration with the coach dissolve into something resembling mutual understanding. "You've got guts, kid," Callahan added. "Keep that up." And just like that, it felt like a bridge had been built instead of burned. But the true impact of Barron's actions was only beginning to unfold. In the weeks following the charity game, the ripple effects were impossible to ignore. Local news outlets spotlighted the event as a beacon of unity in divisive times. One headline, "Teen Athlete Sparks Community Movement Through Soccer," even made the front page of the Arlington Gazette. Photos and videos from the game spread online, shared by people who hadn't even been there, carrying Barron's message far beyond his small town. At school, the once divided community began to heal. Students who had mocked Barron in the hallways approached him, some even apologizing and admitting they admired his courage. Teachers brought up the charity game during class discussions, pointing to it as an example of leadership and the importance of standing up for one's beliefs. The most unexpected change, however, came from Coach Callahan himself. One afternoon, as Barron was heading home, Callahan caught up with him. His usual commanding tone was replaced by something quieter, more introspective. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened," he admitted. "I thought I was protecting the team by enforcing that rule, but maybe I lost sight of what really matters." Barron paused, unsure of what to say at first. After a moment, he replied, "It wasn't easy for me either. I just wanted to show that we can have different beliefs and still respect each other." The coach nodded, a thoughtful look on his face. "Well, I want to make things right. If you're willing, I'd like to have you back on the team." Barron hesitated, not because he didn't want to return, but because the experience had changed him in ways he hadn't expected. Soccer still mattered deeply to him, but now he saw it as a platform for something greater than just the game. "I'll think about it, Coach," he said with a small smile. "But either way, I appreciate it." The community didn't forget the lesson Barron had taught them. Inspired by the charity game's success, the school began organizing similar events, each one drawing people closer together. Barron found himself becoming an unintentional leader, not just on the field, but off it, as someone others looked to for guidance and inspiration. In the end, that's what mattered most to him. Not the headlines or the applause, but the knowledge that he had made a real difference. He had turned a moment of conflict into a movement for understanding, proving that even when the odds feel stacked against you, standing up for your beliefs can inspire meaningful change. And that's a message for all of us. Never underestimate the power of your voice, no matter how small it may seem. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and join us for more powerful narratives like this one.